Okay, welcome back to a new angle. We're gonna stick these two cylinders together. We've thrown them, we've measured them, we did a great job. We are not gonna have any water in the bottom of this one. We're gonna make sure that that it's not too gooey, because when we flip this over, it will just, all the water will fall out. So that would not be good. The other thing is on the bottom here, where this connects, I'm just gonna run my finger so it's a little rounded, because if it's like a really sharp spot right there, that can provide like a line for that to score off of, and they can kind of rip away. So it's very rare that this would rip away. But with that said, don't do this like over top of your infant baby or cat or whatever. Like it can fall. So this is my piece I'm gonna put on top. I always have the flange piece, the bottom piece, because I'm gonna raise up through the flange and not down through the flange. And when I turn this over, I can't just turn it or else gravity will collapse it. So I have to turn it under no gravity. I have to turn off gravity in order to flip this over. So I don't have the ability to turn off gravity in the room, but what I do have the ability to do is let this free fall. This pot is gonna free fall while I turn it. So I'm gonna raise it up over my head, and then as it falls, I'm gonna turn it under no gravity as it falls. So I'll come up, and I have this grip on it so that I am in a flip grip, and I'm gonna come up, down, decelerate. And that means that I haven't distorted this piece to make it upside down. And then I've measured, so hopefully it fits just perfect. And I'm looking, I have upward pressure, I'm looking, I'm kind of strainy. Look. Now I'm releasing a little bit of pressure so I can look over there. Okay, looks pretty good. And now about this time when I start to release, it's never coming off. It will never come off again. If I can look with a little bit of upward pressure, then if I've messed it up or I have a big problem, at least I can kind of like abort and try again. But now this is permanent. You'll have to cut out with a needle because this is adhered really well. So I've got my pieces stuck together. This is a critical stage. Now I have this huge thing. This is where the whole game changes. I'm going to start feeling some different emotions because this starts to engage me as a human-sized person. My first priority, now that I'm like this, is that I need to get this. Oh, can somebody help me switch the wheel plug? I need to get this torchable. That's my first priority. Is I need to be able to torch this cylinder, and because the flange is sticking out right here, I can't. Because if I torch this is gonna get all white, and then I'll never be able to smooth it out, and it's gonna be a big problem. So as I do that, thanks, perfect. As I think about that as my North Star, my first thing I'm gonna do is I am gonna keep the bat on because the bat provides some benefit of air pressure. And some people go get really fixated on that. I'm not real fixated on it, but I do want to spin the pot at least and have a look before I start getting too idea heavy. And I spin this and say, okay, it's not bad. It's not perfect, but that's all right. So now I want to get to where I can torch this as my first priority, because if I have a problem, I'm going to solve it with the torch. That's it. If I have a problem, I'm going to solve it with the torch. There's no other solution to problems now. Torch. Any complaint, any issue, the only problem that you would have is if you over torched it and it was like cracking, if it's like crackling. But like there is no problem that you would see that you would wonder how should I solve this problem? Torch it. Always torch it. You have the skills. If you're at this place, you have the skills to do a lot of pottery stuff, which what you're failing to see is that it's not your skills probably so much. It's the material is being asked to do something it can't do. So I'm coming in here with this flange, and I'm just using my two dry fingers to slowly go from the bottom to the top, and that's forcing air out. Bottom to top, forcing air out all the way up. Closing it off. And then I'm going to smooth it out all together. So now no matter what happens, I can torch this. I can torch it right now. Now, of course, I don't want to torch it with my nice $35 blue plastic bat on there, but I could. So this is a method of like kind of a prophylactic protection of the pot. Now, I have to cut the bat off. And so what I'm doing is I'm holding the wire kind of with fists, and then I'm pushing upward with my 2 pointer fingers like this. And then I'm gonna use my palms to walk this through. So I'm walking the wire through between my fingers and my palms on the bat. Hear how calm I am. Hear how I'm not pulling on this. What a silly time to cause your pot to fall over or to make it off center by failing to hold steady the blue bat as you apply the wire. You got to hold that bat steady. I'll take this up, and you can see, it's not perfect, but the cut is good enough that it's not messing up my my life. This is my special bat that I want to do with 2-part pots. So I'm going to take it back to the wheel, even though I'm tempted to just set it aside and let it get warped or whatever. It's like set it on an old trimming tool. I'm going to take the extra moment, and I'm going to put it back on my other wheel, so that it can stay flat. Bats that stay flat all the time will stay flat all the time. This is also the time when I have this is an adjustable stool, but I do have another one already ready to go. I'm gonna switch to a taller stool, because as my hands go up where I wanna work, so must my butt. That's another important part of making really big pots is you got to keep moving up. And you see people that are making the huge pots, they're on scaffolds, and they're clicking up the scaffold with each level of pot that they make. So I have my 2-part thing. This is kind of a moment of truth where we see, like, is this wheeling around? And if it is, which wouldn't be unreasonable to see, and if you're just starting off, it's definitely going to be doing that. This is a great time to apply a stabilizing raise. And the stabilizing raise doesn't have to really be very much of anything. It's just basically you just want to, what I would call, get a hold of it. Just get a hold of it so that it stops migrating around in a big way. Instead of, so that if it's going like this, you get a hold of it so it can't do that anymore. And then maybe there's some little bit of this still in it or whatever, but that's stuff that you're going to improve with the process. So I'll do this little stabilizing raise, and look at my chin and my hands. I can use my chin to stabilize. And do this little stabilizing raise. And you can see maybe how that kind of like locked it in. That was really helpful. But now I have this flat top. I cut it off. There's a lot of it stuck to the bat. It's a flat top. If I raise on it, it's going to turn into like a U, and it's going to get weird and crazy. So what I want is my next step here is I want to turn this flat top into a round top, and I'm going to do that with a double bevel cut. So I'm going to cut with the needle tool down and in, and then down and out, and that's going to leave behind a rim that's like this. So I'll come in here, and see I'm supporting behind with my fingers, and I'll cut down and in. And then if I was right-handed, I would cut down and out, but I'm actually left-handed, so I'm going to cut up and in. But you see, up and in and down and out are the same thing from different handed people. Got to be careful cutting up like this. Is a little more difficult because the needle, you got to hold the needle real still, or it wants to run and get pulled down into the wall of the piece, which is calamitous. I got my little ring here. By the end of this pot, I'll have 4 or 5 more of these little trivets for my future wood-fired pots. Now I am in a position where I can torch, and I will, just because I want to do the right thing, I will. You'll notice I often do the wrong thing on purpose for speed. This is a little green ball torch, a Sondico brand. There's a Sear Pro is another great one. You can get them on Amazon. This one's about $30. Pull the trigger, it's really easy. Makes a big flame. This amount of torching, so I can't torch this that much because I didn't use that much water to make it. But you might find yourself, and if you're trying to do this for the first time, you almost certainly will find yourself in a position where you got way wetter clay right now than I have. So applying the torch at this moment to get your clay to how my clay is right now, which is like hard plastic. So there's leather hard. It's not leather hard for sure, but it's a little bit harder than just like plastic out of the bag. And that's a good place to be. So now we're gonna come back to our cylinder, centering, opening, raising, shaping. This is just like we've raised the cylinder, and now we're back to the normal stuff. There's all normal stuff. There's a little consideration that there's like a seam in here, and we wanna get that seam out of there. But other than that, it's pretty much the same stuff. So I will start off by trying to address that seam because I did raise it on the inside, but now I'm just raising through the seam. And that is serving to homogenize that a little bit. And then I'll come over it with my rib. Because really what I want to do is kind of push that seam out. I want that seam to join the rest of the walls and not really be different from everything else, because that difference is going to cause different heat work to happen. So now in my shaping process, this is, what I found helps make really nice pots is being able to reach all the way down to the bottom. This is my least stable move and moment. I didn't like the speed. I wanted it to be going a little bit faster, so I stopped the wheel altogether. And now I'm coming back up into speed, so I can get a good adjustment. And I'm working with my feet off the pedal. I'm not sitting there with my foot on the pedal. I'm making sure that the wheel is just doing its thing and it's independent of me. So I'm gonna take my first pass. I wanna be mindful that I don't wanna get out of hand and start going to where I have to push it out too far, too fast. I wanna make several passes over this to bow this out. And that's gonna help also homogenize things. And
Can you show one more time how your left hand is pushing out into that rib and it's not catching on the inside?
Yep.
Is it fairly damp inside, or is
it's fairly damp, but you might need to find yourself applying some water. For my next pass, I'll keep the sponge in my hand and be able to deploy a little bit of moisture. But really, I'm at minimum moisture, and I don't have I'm using the side of my finger here, and so there's not that much surface area that's touching it. Now that I've gotten here, I've basically, I've kind of like gotten pretty close to this bottom that's going to work for me for now. Now I'm going to sit down as fast as I can. And then I'm going to try to find a place for my arm. It's like if I can get my arm onto my knee, you can see how this is like a much more stabilized way to hold the rib. So I'll be thinking about like different ways to stabilize myself as I do this ribbing and different body position for a different rib position. And a lot of that, remember, it has to do with like where is your butt versus your hands. And if you need your hands to go up, move your butt up. Figure out how to get your butt to raise up. So now as I'm doing this, I'm starting to feel some limits in the clay. And those limits are being expressed by little wobbles. And like if I'm doing something up here, and I'm seeing something reacting down here, or something is getting changed down here by my action up here, then what that's telling me is that I'm asking too much from the clay down here to put the force on it up here with the clay down here being so wet. So all I have to do as a remedy for that is to torch it. And so as I prepare for my next steps, what I'm going to do is I'm going to smooth this out. I'm getting ready to torch it. So I'm going to smooth it out so that when I apply the torch, it will be applied to the most even surface possible, which is good. I don't usually use the curved side of the rib, but I am, just to try to get the wobbles out here, you know, on this little spot. So again, I'm kind of a no rules, just do what you need to do to get done what you want to get done kind of philosophy. And now back to the torch, because now I've got, you know, quite a bit of progress made. Now I can almost work on this leather hard now. I mean, this could be really, really dry. Did you fast forward through that part? I hope so. But don't fast forward through that part in real life, because you really need to get that dryness. And when I'm touching this right now, this feels leather hard. Feels 100% leather hard. But that's because there's still moisture on the inside, and it will homogenize back through. If you feel like you've gone overboard, and overboard pretty much just means you see white on the outside. You cooked it in such a way that it looks like you can see the dryness coming up. Then immediately put a plastic bag over it, and the humidity in there will generally moisten it or even it out. And if you really overcooked it, then you can hit it with a sponge and then bag it. And those are pretty good actions to make that work out. So I've got a little bit more power here down low that I can use to do stuff on the rim with. And so now that's what I'm gonna do. I've got this pretty thick rim, and I need to work on getting it thinned out and getting it moving towards like whatever it's going to be. And you'll notice once again that I have, it's like the bottom, this was the bottom of my old cylinder, so it has the most problems. And that move right there was me basically trying to get a hold of all the problems from the bottom, from the old bottom, and concentrate them all into this ring right here. So you see like all, and you can see them. There's an essential problem where the whole thing is like this, and there's all these little problems that are each kind of manifest in a different place, but it's all concentrated to that spot. And that's a crucial thinking paradigm for these stacked, very large pots. Okay, and of course, I never waste the opportunity to make a trivet. Love these things. And here's another. If you're not a wood fire, it's probably really boring.
How big of a pot could you sit on something like that?
Giant. But it'd be a small pattern. You can make bigger trivets for bigger patterns. It makes it a lot easier because then the shells don't move, and you can be more confident that the pot will stay put.
And it only needs one of those trivets for that big of a pot? Or
Sure. Just use big shells, you know. And that's pretty far apart. You know, you think about the spot. If the spots are this far apart on a pot, you know, the pot can be quite a bit bigger, especially with these big shells, and that's not outrageous. Okay, so now I'm gonna continue working on my shape. You'll notice that I'm in a really low risk shape paradigm here where nothing's gonna collapse. Risk means that I'm close to horizontal. This is nothing like that. So I'm gonna keep that as much as I can so I can make my riskiest move last. In this case, there's gonna be two risky moves. One is down here when I make it more bulbous, and the other one is up here when I make it more stronger shoulder to finish off the rim. And the shoulder will be the riskiest part, and so I'll do that last. So this will take some time. It's all right. It's a lot of material, a lot of kiln space. Think about some of these pots, they might be $300 just to make them. So keep that in mind if you're trying to save 10 minutes by rushing.
What's your inside hand doing right now?
Stand by. I got my sponge in there, but really, you know, I got the straight finger, and that straight finger is up against that rib. So I'm creating this gap, kind of a straight gap that goes between those two. I'll head back to the bottom. So the harder pots to make are these ones that you bow out a long ways. And I hope that you can kind of see why. Doing these moves is hard. And different problems come up. Maybe there's a bubble. There's old bumps and bebops and stuff. Maybe there's some uneven dryness in the clay. All that stuff will kind of be there to haunt you and bother you more and more as you get wider and wider. Okay, so now we're getting a pretty nice belly on this thing, but we're keeping the shoulder, look at how low risk the shoulder is. We're keeping the shoulder really up because now is when I want to start thinking hard about what is the rim going to be like in its final form. So to start that, I've got a little craziness up here that I want to get a hold of now. And that craziness has come from kind of concentrating the badness up to the rim as I've been doing this ribbing. You see I'm applying water very judiciously, only in the places that I need it. Little face raise. Cut that funk off. I'm gonna have to do that again. And you see, I like to get a pretty substantial chunk of clay, not only because it makes a nice trivet, but because then I don't risk, the big pitfall with cutting off pieces is that you don't cut enough, and then you got to cut it again, and then you got to cut it again. It's like by the time you've done 4 or 5 cuts to get it, then you might as well have just taken the big one. So I'm pretty close. I'm going to keep this rim in a pretty close to configuration. I'm going to make it a little smaller. But this is like a good rim storage configuration. So I'm going to just keep all the material that I need for the rim just hanging out right there. One other little secret here, I got a lot of clay right there, really, really thick right there. That's gonna have to hold a lot. And it just makes it easier if you give it yourself a little bit more thickness right there because it's gonna hold all the mechanism for the neck and stuff. Then you don't have to do such specific torching. So now I'm gonna clean up the shape and make it the final form. Then I'm gonna hit the rim, and then I'm gonna hit the shoulder and be done. Notice my wheel speed is like 10% shy of uncomfortable. Makes it easier. So I want this to have that balloon-like quality, a kind of inflated quality, but also what I really want is for that quality to exist on the inside. I don't care about the outside quite as much because I'll trim it. I can't trim the inside, so I'm throwing the pot to the inside, and then I'll adjust it in post. Now, up here, like where I'm working on right now, for example, there's not very much trimming that I can do. So I want to have the whole thing pretty much on the right track, but there are adjustments I can make. So I keep that in mind as I do this, that some of the final refinements will occur in the trimming stage. And the trimming stage will happen upright like this. I like to look in there, look at the outside, make sure that the inside and the outside make some sense, and that the future outside. So now here's the higher risk move. Right there to finish the bottom. Now I'll finish the rim, make it so I can't get my hand in there anymore, and then I'll finish the shoulder. Now one thing I can do, because I finished the bottom, is I can give it a little torch just to lock that in. And I would torch it probably even a little bit more than I'm about to show you. So at this point, you could actually torch it a lot more, and that'd be nice because you're not messing with that. You're messing with this, so having that stiffer, you have a lot stiffer. One of the key lessons here is it's really hard to over torch it. I suggest everybody over torch a couple pieces so that you can understand how far you can go, because it's way further than you think. Okay, so work on the rims a little. Too much water in there. So I'm going to do kind of a combination of collaring and inward raising to manipulate this. The whole thing is moving a little bit, so I'm going to have to be okay with that. As I'm getting to the finish line, I'm going to get less and less obsessed with constant improvement, because every improvement requires a removal of clay. So I worked pretty hard to get all that clay up there, and I don't want to waste any more than I have to. So I got one more concentration. Also remember, big pots, big rims. You don't want to end up here with a little knife edge. That'll make everybody sad. Especially the gallerist who's trying to sell it.
On this one, you didn't do any coloring.
All of the inward pressure has been from raising, huh?
Yeah.
And that's because my left hand is supporting the shoulder. Remember when I was mentioning how thick it was right here? Now that I'm doing this stuff to it, I'm really glad I have all that clay, because that's what's going to let me make this into a really nice, cool shape. The other thing that's letting me do that is that torching. If I hadn't torched, there's no way I could be doing this like this. The material is not strong enough at this thickness for this action. Unless it's quite drier, then out of the bag. So one thing you notice, I've kind of set the rim. This is going to be my rim size, and now I'm going to adjust underneath it. You don't want to adjust underneath and then try to mess with the rim because you've like weakened this part, and then you're working on that. So you want to make sure that you're approaching things in the right order. It's very important and helpful. So with this one, I want to create a little separation between the rim and the body. And I don't want that separation to be like too stark. So I'm going to give it kind of this little, almost a little bit of a messy look, but it's not really messy. It's just the edge of this rib moves a little bit, so it has a bit of a handmade look. So I think a lot about those, like if I'm going to leave somewhere, I'm like obsessing with the skin, obsess. And then I leave like a little thing. And to me, that's like a hint of the maker. It's like, it's a suggestion of the hand so that when somebody's looking at this, like, oh damn, like look at that piece. That was handmade. That was clearly handmade. Like that person had both the hand and the mechanical skill. And so, I like trying to like give those little hints to the viewer that this piece was indeed made by hand, by a human potter instead of like some Pure One machine. Final refinements. The other thing is, don't be afraid to get to this point where you feel like you're like almost done, so close. And then like go have lunch. Just let it stiffen up a little bit. And think about it. So you don't rush. Remember all this money and time we're spending on this? We don't need to rush to have this finished 10 minutes earlier or 15 minutes earlier. It's going to be in the world for a long time. It's going to be really special in somebody's home if it comes to fruition. So, this is a pretty big thing that's very long lasting. I like to remind myself of that, but as I rush to finish, poor quality. Why? Save your poor quality for mugs and other stuff you're going to break like this year. These things break a lot less than you think. Cats can't knock them over. People never drop them because they never pick them up. I had one get exploded in a show. A little kid was running around and knocked into it, and it fell on the cement. The art center had insurance. I offered the art center to just let it go, but they were like, "Oh no, we have insurance. Like we've never used it. We definitely want to use the insurance." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool."
What do you think the final weight is of that post wood fire?
I don't know. Maybe 30 pounds? 33, 35? I could probably have finished a little bit sooner, but I want to demonstrate the patience. Got a lot of eyeballs on me right now. I can feel the pressure, not from you because you're bad people, but just like if you know, you get to the end, at the end of any project, you begin to feel the pressure to finish it. And so many times I see people succumb to that pressure and compromise the whole thing because they didn't want to spend an extra 2 minutes. So I would just leave you with that piece of advice is like, be thinking when you're, don't leave something that you're not satisfied with, but at the same time, don't rush to fix something that you need to fix at a later stage. So like right now, there is a booger on my neck. It's going and around, and I could chase that booger around for a long time. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to wait until this is leather hard. Because I'm going to come back. I already know I have to trim this because there's a little bit of action in here that is too wobbly. And then the bottom is too heavy to the table. So I'm going to fix those things in the trimming, but I'm also going to go grab this booger instead of trying to fight to get this right now. So, keeping those things in mind, like what things do I need to take the time right now to fix that I'm not going to fix in trimming? And what things can I smartly let go of until a stage when it makes sense to address them? So as you think about next stage of these big pots, I would leave you with that. Thanks. Like and subscribe for more.